Alright, so guess what? Yes, I went hands-on with Path of Exile 2 recently because I was flown out to LA for an in-person event held by the dev team Grinding Gear Games. And let me tell you what, I had a blast playing as the new class, the Witch. I went hands-on with the Monk and the Warrior. And also, we have got to talk about these boss battles because I faced off against a ton of bosses. You're going to see those gameplay clips here in just a moment. It was insane. But I also did it in single player and co-op, so I'm going to talk about the differences there as well. And mentioning co-op, it was a unique experience because it was couch co-op, because we were playing on PS5. So I got to go ahead and play the console experience. Yeah, this game is also going to be releasing on PC as well. And mentioning that, the game is releasing in early access late 2024, and this is going to be a free-to-play game. So that's great. There's going to be no entry fee here whatsoever, so you can go ahead and try it. So yeah, I say we start out with the Witch class. You guys know me. I love the Necromancer from Diablo 4. If you're a Necromancer fan, you're definitely going to want to run the Witch with Path of Exile 2. Look at that explosion go off. So you're probably wondering what in the world happened there. So yeah, you can see that I have my own skeleton army with me, and you'll notice here in just a moment that a red circle will appear above some of my skeletons, which means they are ready to detonate, and then boom, you activate them for massive damage. We kind of have an interesting build going on here. This is very much at the beginning of the game, and I am messing around with my build. You could see a bone cage going off. You could see some flare of bones in the ground heading towards the boss there, which can cause a lot of damage. Now, we're switching over to co-op play here, and I'm playing with Everyeye. It was a lot of fun playing with him. We just teamed up randomly because the dev team kept encouraging us, saying, hey, don't just play single player. You've got to try the couch co-op experience on PlayStation 5. I'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment. But right now, we are running the Witch and the Monk together and trying to find some sort of synergy to where we could take on these mobs and ultimately the bosses. And we really started getting into this amazing flow together. And let me tell you what, working together is extremely important, especially when you get into boss battles. You got to work in tandem and really know what type of abilities to use when. And also, one thing that I really enjoyed about co-op, we were constantly warning each other about our health bars. We were like, dude, you're about to die. Heal up, heal up. Because sometimes you can get so into the action trying to like survive, you can kind of get caught off guard. So it was funny that we were watching each other's health bars. But anyway, you can see a lot of our abilities going off here. This is where I'm further getting into the skill tree for the Witch. Here is the bell going off. As you can see, the Monk can lay down this really cool bell that you can actually start smacking and cause a lot of damage. Both players can interact with the bell, which is very cool. And the way it works is you build up a combo for the Monk, and then you can unleash the bell and actually hit it and cause some a lot of different damage. And you can upgrade that thing as well. The area of effect on that can become bigger and bigger. And this is one of the coolest bosses that we faced off against. The first time we faced off against this boss, we were absolutely owned. And we were like, damn, what the hell? So we actually had to regroup ourselves, take a break, get some snacks, come back, and then we came back very strong. We were using all of our abilities in tandem. You can see the bell going off here and a lot of focus going on there. But then I was like, wonder what this game plays like in single player. So I decided to play the Witch in single player and face off against the bosses. And let me tell you what, it was a palm sweating experience, which it should be. It should not be a pushover experience whatsoever. That's something that I really appreciated about Path of Exile 2, is that it wasn't really holding your hand too many times that let you figure out the game. Of course, there is a little bit of a tutorial here, but with the Witch, I also figured out, as you could see, that you can use 2 different type of weapons. There might be more, but in my experience, I did learn, hey, you can switch around between like, I believe it was like a wand and a staff, and one of them had elemental damage. But yeah, it was a ton of fun playing the co-op experience. A little bit more about that here. We were playing on PlayStation 5. Yes, this game is also going to be on PC. But yeah, the PlayStation 5 experience was great. I have like literally very little complaints about my experience there. The menu and UI were very, very clean. In fact, like when he was opening up his inventory management, it didn't block my screen whatsoever. And that's one thing that I really, really did appreciate, is that I can manage my inventory, he can manage his at the same time, and we could just go on our way. Now, interacting with shops in the actual towns and stuff like that was a bit different. That took up the entire UI space. But Everyeye did an interview, and he told me, he came back from that interview and he said, listen, they plan to update that to where even if you interact with the shop, it's not going to interrupt the entire screen. So that's really, really cool. Then ultimately, we ended up on this boss right here, and the first time we faced this boss, it was extremely tough. We both just got wiped out, and then I figured out, hey, each boss has their own weaknesses. I had to ultimately switch over to my two-handed staff, which unlocked a firebolt move. Now, I did sacrifice my skeleton army doing this, but I was causing so much damage, and I found the weakness for the boss. That's really what it is about. If you die, you try, and you try again until you really find that weakness, and you kind of double down on that and expose that type of thing. Let me tell you what, I kept running into bosses over and over again. It was by far one of the coolest things about this game. I was like, holy crap, another boss. Even if it was a sub-boss, it was very cool to be able to roam around the world and stumble into these bosses. And mentioning the world, I really loved how there's so many different biomes that I got to experience. It also feels very dark. That's something that I really appreciate this game, is the art style itself was very attractive. It's not too colorful. It's not going to be something that I think a lot of people are going to be turned off by. It definitely does feel like it matches what people love and know of with Path of Exile. But as you further and further went into the world itself, you notice that the enemies were getting tougher and tougher, and you definitely did need to build up your resistances. So that's going to be a big part of this game. The more I went throughout the world, I noticed that, man, I'm facing off against enemies that are poisoning me more and more. So this is something you really do have to consider when you are venturing forward in Path of Exile 2's world. As you can see, I'm being absolutely overwhelmed, and I know, man, maybe I've bitten off more than I can actually chew here. And that happened to me several times, and that's something that I really loved, is the challenge going throughout the game. This is definitely not what I would describe as a pushover game, an easy game, but it's also not going to be like overly difficult where you're throwing your controller. There's going to be a way around a lot of the stuff that you go through. One of my biggest concerns was, are we going to be seeing redundant enemies? I kept noticing the enemy variety in this game is legit. Already within only a few hours of playing the game, I was absolutely stunned by the amount of enemy variety on offer in Path of Exile 2. So yeah, we got to talk about some numbers here. So this game is going to be very, very big. I don't think people realize how big this game actually is. It's going to have over 100 unique bosses, which is saying something. They're making a statement with this game. I'm telling you what, they're going to offer it for free as a free-to-play experience. And they're going to say, hey, you know what? Out the gates, we're going to do over 100 unique bosses, which is to say that they are not going to have any reskinned bosses in that pool of 100 bosses that they're talking about, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, also, they plan on, with early access, I believe it was like 8 classes at launch. I think they're aiming for roughly around like 12 classes or so, which again, by the numbers, we're looking at this is an extremely impressive, daunting task that they are undertaking here with Path of Exile 2. It's going to have a ton of content. It reminds me of like the good old days of video games. When they released video games, it's like a ginormous full package where you were kind of like overwhelmed. It seems like they're going out with that approach here. But yeah, you're seeing some warrior gameplay finally. You'll notice something very interesting about the warrior. The windup for some of these moves takes quite some time. You have to kind of get used to that. Also, there's a little bit of delay with some of these abilities, which was pretty cool. Actually, you'll see me unleash the earthquake right now. And the way you do that is you hit the ground, and then you have to wait for it to actually erupt. So you have to kind of do some planning on how you want to work the room, I guess you would say, and wait for enemies to maneuver around you and lure them into a trap. It was definitely a very different play style, but I loved it. And yeah, I actually conquered a boss single-handedly with the warrior. But overall, after playing the witch, monk, and warrior, I did play a little bit as the ranger, the rogue type class. I've got to say, by far, my favorite was the witch. It's just my go-to. You guys know that I love the necromancer. That could change with the full release of the game, but what they've created with the witch is absolutely something special up my alley in terms of play style. But overall, a lot of variety between all of the various classes. There is something you will find here just for you. I really, really do believe that for sure. But yeah, there it is. Path of Exile 2. I walked away from this event wanting more. That's all I can say. 6 hours was definitely not enough time for this one. And yeah, I really appreciate Grinding Gear Games for flying me out to LA and having me. I greatly appreciate that. But yeah, stay tuned here for more news and updates about Path of Exile 2. I definitely plan on covering this game. I believe there's going to be an alpha, beta, all sorts of cool things happening with this one, so stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.